told you, when you started talking about the
I'm
other
sorry.
girl, he wants to take what you have to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we just want to, no, that's fine. As we're talking, all this stuff is.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt though. You said you wanted to start the meeting. But
Right.
Grandma had that big thick book, and Aunt Blanche, I didn't know if Lily gave it to you.
Keep your hands on him, please.
I'm sorry. And she had that book because she showed us pages in there where the Wilsons had signed, either as witness or as buyers and so forth in there. And it was just something that was a real memorable thing to have. But I don't know if they awarded it to the library or the Historical Society, or if Lily took it home with her. I don't know what she did. I had a hard time going through all that stuff of Aunt Blanche's because it's so emotional to go through and find stuff and to come up on stuff that your history's there. Because she was very great about history and giving us stuff like this deed framed for our memories. And I had given a lot of things to Betty and Blaine earlier, and then I had some stuff, and I can't find it, Betty. I looked everywhere. Huffman's brought in and gave me the copies out of the Bible that was the family Bible between the Wilsons and the Perkins and that, because they were intertwined. And Uncle Charlie Wilson, I think she said, brought the Bible to her and left it when there was war going on to make sure that it would take good care of them. And then when Aunt Blanche borrowed it so she could do some historical stuff with it, and then when she passed, Bessie Lou asked for the Bible back, and I asked for copies of all the inside, like married and children and so forth, because it had the intermixing. But it's so old, and it's handwritten, and when you try to copy it, it's such poor copies that you really can't hardly make out very much of it. And I thought I stuck it in this envelope, and I went through it before I came down. And I thought, well, I must have gave it to Willie to look at, and instead of leaving it, she thought I gave it to her, and she took it. This is a picture of the home that was down on the Vineland property there in Wilson Hollow Road that I was raised on, and it was Civil War. I told Betty that those rocks that were at the top, you'd go up those steps, there was great huge rocks that sat up at the top on each side, and they had literal Civil War bullets in them. It looked like somebody had taken a punch and put a piece of metal and punched it into the rock. That's what it looked like to me as a child. But we were told that that was from the Civil War. And there was up on the top of the hill, if you just barely passed our driveway, there was a fort that overlooked the railroad and the river, and they kept people stationed up there to help protect the area, to oversee. And there was a tunnel out off of, when you and I were talking about the slave cemetery, somewhere near there, there's a tunnel that has been there forever as far as a railroad tunnel. But my understanding is the railroad is now demolishing it because they have fear that it's going to start crumbling, and they don't want to be responsible if something should happen. So they're taking it apart or down, or destroying it. And if you go off of where you come up Vineland Road off of 21, not the one where it's coming out where Vineland School Road, but you come down further past Limbeck Lake Road and Vineland School Road, Vineland Road. If you go up that way and go around a curve, if you would, on that property, on that corner curve, if you walk to the back of their property, you would be able to access where the slave cemetery was, and there's hardly any markers. And what few there are, there's not very much on them. And if there was anything, Linda said the only thing she could make out was Auntie somebody, and that was all.
I've been told there's Aunt Benny.
Yeah, that was it, I think.
Yeah.
And that's about all she could make out on it. I've never seen it. But she's been back there.
That's on the William Narp,
Yes.
behind William Narp's house. Supposedly back on there.
Well, I used to think that too, but the way she described it, it must be on the other side of the, see, their house was down in that holler, and that railroad track that comes through, because if you'd come back
Oh,
off
this
her
is the new
property-
one up on 21. the way I
Coming from the
understand
other side, actually.
Oh, you're talking about their new home,
Yeah.
Bill and his wife, not the Narps that originally lived down on the dairy
No,
farm.
no.
Oh, okay, because that's me instantly thinking, is
Sure.
that place there? And,
Now, where is it at in relation to the North farm?
What was that?
okay, if the Norp farm is here, my understanding
The
is
painters?
it's the railroad track comes across here, and then you'd cross it to get down into their property. But over on this side where they had cattle all the time, and the dairy cattle would go up into that, it's up in there somewhere. I don't know exactly pinpoint, but I can find that out for you. Because she told me if they came across Isgrig's property from their property, they could walk right to it, going back through. Because next to Dawson's was Isgrig's. And if you came through their property, she said, and came back through it onto Narp's property, that's where it was.
Can you get pictures of this?
I can try. I can ask her to walk back with me someday, and we can take pictures. Yeah, I imagine it's grown up pretty bad, but with ours at the farm, it's grown up bad because we haven't gone out and cut or anything. But
we need to get the location. You know,
exact location.
Yeah, we can get a GPS location, so
okay.
we'll always know 100 years from now. We'll know where it was if it's not there anymore. You know.
Yeah, and I don't think Bill would mind if we go back there. I'll ask him, but I don't think he'd mind to allow us to go back and take pictures, because I'd want to ask permission first before I would do it. If anybody wanted to look at this, they're welcome to. This was a one-room schoolhouse that when my sister and I were children, this is where we started out before we went into DeSoto Public School. And it had 8 classes in one room, and our restrooms were at the back of the property, males and females, one on one side of the property, one on the other, so they were separate. The only water we had to drink was a well that had one of those pump handles. It was down in the basement where the furnace was fired up.
In the basement?
Yes.
Now this is the Vineland School?
Yeah, there was a basement, because that's where they kept all the coal, and the boys would have to go down and take turns stoking the fire in the winter to keep it going. And there was a big square vent thing that the heat came up through and circulated around. And we had like a cloakroom when you first walked in, and that's where you put your coats and your lunch boxes and stuff. And when you went in to sit down, there was like 2, 3, about 4 rows of desks, and they were the kind where 2 sat at a desk, like Little House on the Prairie, with the wooden thing, and you had the underneath part, and they looked just like the ones on Little House on the Prairie. That's what. And the front part of them, there was a seat bench where you, if it was your turn, like he'd call the first graders up and set you down, and then you would have your class of reading. And then you'd go back to your desk, and the second graders would go up and sit down. And what you had the ability to do was listen in on the others and learn. Plus, if you were assigned a study time and you were working on a project and you had an issue and you wanted to ask a question, you would go to the other side of the room and ask the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders for assistance, and they would help you. But we would go downstairs, and the big boys would pump the pump, and they had a tin cup on a handle that was with a string hanging down, and you'd pump it full, get a drink, pour it out, give it to the next kid. We didn't know about germs, we just drank from that, And we had a lot of fun giving, like, Christmas parties and things, because we'd have, like, programs. And there was, like, a little bit of a stage they built up against where the blackboards were. I'll never forget, we were allowed to freely write on the blackboards during recess or lunch. Anytime we would ask permission, they would allow us to. Well, when I was transferred into the public schools here in DeSoto, the first time I walked up to the blackboard and started writing, one of the boys walked up and knocked me flat and said, "You can't do that." And Gary White. And he and I, we had fun. We bickered back and forth through school all the time. But this has got some
So
writing.
did you actually go to school at the one room?
Yes.
And then you were transferred into the public school?
Because they told us they were going to discontinue this school. So my mother had to drive us in every day and pick us up every day until they got a bus route going.
Okay,
Who
who are we talking to, Dave?
Beverly, Sloan, but I was a Wilson. And I'm 63 years old, so therefore I was like probably there in 49. My first year was 49 when I was there, because I was born in 44.
How long did you go to school there before
I only
they
got to
sent
go
you to DeSoto?
Yeah, I only got to go the first grade. Willie got to go first, second, and middle of third grade. They traded her, or transferred her in, but I only got to go the first grade. I was sad, because I wanted to go there all along.
I don't want to interrupt your program,
No,
but I
that's-
want to come back to
The
something
school?
later that you might be able to help with on another project.
Okay. And one of our relatives on the Wilson side has gone through and made records for us of our, the breakdown of our relations. And we even did a cemetery thing where they broke down, oh, there it is, I do have them. I clipped
copies, copies.
Yeah, this is, I
Does
said
that
though, they're
give you
gonna
a
be,
Bible, or?
this is the one from the Bible, Betty, that I told you about. But you know what? I stapled it together. I shouldn't have done that because I didn't want to lose them. But the thing is, some of them, they're better than I thought they'd be. But see how, I mean, they're so poor that you can hardly read some of the names or the dates and stuff. And this is, I gave this to Blaine to help out because it's the 3 girls that my father had. It was like his father had a boy and a girl. The boy had 3 girls. So the Wilson name on that lineage is gone. His father's brother, Charles, he had a boy, and then he had a boy, but they moved to Indiana, and we have kind of lost track of them.
Is that how the name Polite got in down there?
Yeah.
Because I've always seen the cemetery is called Wilson Polite on the topographicals, I think, or something.
It's supposed to be just the Wilson Cemetery, but the Polites are there, I think Perkins are there, mostly Wilsons, but there's a couple of babies that are buried there, but there's no real markers. It was just a courtesy that they allowed them
Well,
to.
there's like neighbors maybe get buried in there also, or, you know, adjoining
not-
farms, or
no,
all
not-
family members?
This was more or less through the family, that because of one marrying into another, and that's how it all happened, because we've got like, if you go down through, we're all related.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like the Polites and the Perkins and the Vineyards and so forth, all meld in because of the Wilsons coming from, they started in Virginia, my understanding was, and came up through Kentucky and then settled in Missouri on the river down there because they thought it would be good farming. And the Indians had lived there in that area for years before any of these white settlers took over. And there was many times that they would dig up by accident when they were plowing the land or harvesting things, and it would bring up the whole skeleton from a gravesite or pottery or arrowheads or tommyhawks or stuff, and they just pillaged our farm once we found that. You'd find people down there constantly without permission, and then when we donated the one that Dad found that was a complete grave, they preserved and put it in the first building when you come into Washington State Park that used to be a conservation building. It was there, and someone stole it. Now, how do you steal a big old box full of all relics of that? I mean, come on. But
Now, you said Polite, Perkins, and Wilkins are, by
Vineyards.
courtesy, are all, and this is a family cemetery?
it's a family
And this
cemetery.
is not the same cemetery that you were just talking about prior, because that was Aunt Vinny's, a
No.
different cemetery? And so where is the cemetery that you're talking about now? This is
Okay,
on,
On
if you
Wilson
came
Farm.
into this farm and you would go up into the barn lot, past the barn and out into the field and go all the way back till you'd see a pond on your right,
Okay.
and up on the hill you'd see the fenced-in cemetery.
Oh, okay.
And it's been there since the 1800s.
How many acres do you have?
We had,
Okay, I'm just trying to get on here.
we girls have discrepancy about that. I say we had 565. Claudia said we had 590 something. But they started with over 1,000, my mother said, and they sold it off in parcels until they ended up with just the, like, almost 600 acres that they farmed fully. And they shared in that until when Uncle Charlie died and his family moved away. My grandfather, Frank, took over the farm, and my mother and father bought a farm, small farm, right across the river on top of the hill that was in San Francisco County. And when my grandfather had a heart attack, they asked my mom and dad to move in with them to live at the big house and help with the farm. So they added on a kitchen and then put a wall between. They had like a large, when you'd come in the front door, there was this big, huge, like open room with a big door between, but I mean it was like huge area. They put a wall between so that Grandma could that would be her living room. She'd come through the doorway, and then this her bedroom, then she'd have the bathroom, and then she'd have her kitchen, and then she had the screened-in back porch. Then when you came where the door went down to the basement, little foyer there, then you'd come through, and the other side of that wall there was our big living room, and then Dad added on a kitchen. And then we went on upstairs, and we had 3 bedrooms and a half bath upstairs, and then there was right here on the front of the house, there was a little room attached out there that Mom kept for storage, and it had not as much insulation as the rest of the house. But think about something. When they built those homes back then, as a child, I remember getting up in the winters and you would have lots of good covers on so you wouldn't be cold until you got out of bed. And you would hurry. You'd run around and go in Dad and Mom's room because that's where the furnace vent came out. We didn't have any vent in our room at all. And the ice on the windows we could scratch and write and do things with because it was, you know, that's the way it was. And then in the summertime, you'd open it up with the screens, and when you would lay there at night, Mom would have it so that right around dusk, she'd go up and open the windows up so far and put the big fan in the window and turn it on, and it would pull all that air, and you're living on a river bottom. So cool air would be coming in through there. You'd be covering up at night, but you'd lay and hear the crickets and the frogs and the brook babbling by because we had the creek right down there that they crossed to get to the house. I loved it.
Does that creek have a name?
No, just creek was all we ever called it. I
Okay.
don't remember ever giving it a name because it was just ours there in front of the house, and it came all the way from where Keller's had their place up there. It came from, originated we think from that area and came in under the road and came all the way down through that big pasture that you'd come down past, and then all the way down through our, in front of the house, all the way down through the fields and all the way until it ran into the river. Well, when the river became flooded, it would back up that creek and it would come out all over our spring lot and all over in front. And there was like a little walkway there. It would come all the way up to that. And Dad would have to get the tractor with the lift on it and put us in the lift and take us over and let us get on the bus and then be there to pick us up. Because, yeah, it was too deep. We couldn't
It was
ride.
all flooded in front of the house?
And
I was gonna ask you about that. When the big river got up, what did,
if you didn't catch it in time, Dad had to move. There was areas down below here that there was a truck garage back down there where he had a big truck he kept and things like that. If he didn't catch it in time and it snuck up on him, one time it covered the truck. And then we had to rebuild the truck. He had us girls help him, and he took Mom's, those rounded, that are kind of, what would you call them? Have you ever seen wash tubs that they used back in the old days when they were like this, but then they had the cross that way and then around like that, like they were sealed, but then they had this spout at the bottom where you could drain them, you know? That's what he used to do his parts washing and everything in, and then had to completely clean them so he could put them back down into the basement so she could use them to wash clothes with. Because we had a wringer washer, and you'd wash them, put them through the wringer, put them through the wrench, swing the wringer thing around, run through, you know, wrench it, put them, swing the wringer around, put it in the basket, carry it up and out through and into the lot and hang them on the line. I remember a lot of times when Mom would be out there hanging them, by the time you'd go out to get them, they were solid. Sometimes she'd hang it in the basement downstairs. A lot of good memories. Has anybody got any questions as far as some of the...
Well, on the cemetery.
Yes,
Family
sir.
cemetery. So this was a family cemetery, and
Yes.
the other names are married into the family. And
My
they're buried
understanding,
there.
yes, sir.
And the list here out of the Bible, is that just, are these people that
That's-
are buried in the cemetery?
No, I don't know that every one of those would be buried there. I just know that that's telling us who married who and so forth. This is a list of some of them that are there from the cemetery. And then this is like descendants that kind of gives you an idea of the people that were in our family and on through. And then here is, you were talking about the Polite Vineyard now.
well, the original Wilsons that came, you're saying they came around 1820?
My understanding was they traced it all the way back to 1826.
Is that David Wilson now, or his father?
David, I believe, no, yeah. Well, now, wait a minute. Yeah, no. Wait a minute. David was the first. John William was the second one.
Okay.
Think about it. John William was born in 1835 in Vineland, a son of David.
Yeah,
So don't you think David would have been there before that?
sure.
So that's why I think they said that they could trace it back to 1826. That's what, it's got that right there. And we named one of our sons John William after the family members. And then the fun thing was that my dad's middle name was William, and John's father's middle name was William. So we kind of pulled in a lot there. But it's like, if you want to look at these, you can, I don't know if you, this is
Did
another one that goes to the
Did your
cemetery.
grandmother, did any of them ever talk about any of the events that happened, or anyone, if stories come down about anything during the Civil War.
Yes, she talked about the fact that they had the fort up on the hill. She talked to us about the Wilsons being involved in trying to stay as neutral as possible. They didn't believe in slavery to the extent the Southerners did, but they used people to assist them with the chores, but they treated them different or better. But there was still that, what do you call that, that division, meaning there was a gentleman that worked on the farm when we were just little bitty tots, that my sister, that was one of the first words she learned was his name. His name was Bill, and she'd go out and stand on Grandma's screened-in porch and holler, Bill, Bill, and he would come if he could hear her. But he would sit out on Grandma's screened-in porch. There was a table out there, and she would feed him. He was not allowed to come and sit at our table, which I never understood. But that's just, it was called ethics or something like that. It's
Segregation.
standards. Well, they had standards. It was like when those were brought in as slaves and then they infiltrated into people, they didn't, at the time, they didn't look upon them as an equal. They looked upon them as a worker, so therefore they didn't bring them into the family table to eat. But they treated them like family in the essence that they always fed him well. They even had a place, they built a place behind the garage where he lived. It was like an old railroad car that they fixed it all up, and it was just like a small mobile home. And in fact, the building that the Coxwells built on top of that hill that had the fort on it, they leased that from, my grandma said they would lease it for $4 a year, that ground, and that Bill helped haul rock and stuff up there because they built a humongous fireplace. Our son, when he was 2 and 3 years old, could walk inside of the opening where you'd put the wood. It was such a large fireplace of rock that
And
they
this
built.
building was on top of where the fort used to be,
Mhm.
up on there, on
Mhm.
top of that building? On this side of the tracks or the others from the house?
It's on our side of the house. Not the tracks ran right, like this was the hill, the tracks ran here, and
Mhm.
our house was over here.
Same side as your house?
But the road
Yeah.
went between that and that.
Sure.
That was left to me by my grandmother, but there was some, when I got divorced from my first husband, there was some carryings on done, and his father took it from me.
Mhm.
And then they sold it, and then within 3 months after that, it burned. Which,
Do you know if the fireplace is still standing today? Or?
I have not
Never been
gotten
up
to
there?
go up there.
Yeah.
I was afraid to trespass. I would love to go up there and look, but I was afraid if somebody was up there living and you walk up and go, oh, hi, didn't know it was your property, you know? Because there was a gate there. We had a lock on it. My husband used to go out and mow that all the time in the summer, and we went out after Grandma had died and they said it was ours. We went out and put a new tin roof on it. We put new screens in both of the screened-in porches. It had the most gorgeous view off that screened-in porch in the back where you could look down over the trestle and the river. And she'd even given me the field that connected to the river because she knew how much I talked about always wanting to go swimming in the river or go fishing in the river, or, you know, so she connected that field, and all that was left as an inheritance because she gave the other girls acreage in different areas on the farm so we could have a little piece of it. And I wanted that because I could sit there and look down over the farm and just say, wow, I don't have it, but I can look there, and up here I have a lot of good memories, but it didn't happen.
Do you remember the old block house?
The block
What
one
they
that
call
was,
the block house?
that was down there when you'd go around that sharp curve and then go down into that field.
This would have been near the bridge on the other side of the tracks.
Other side of the
I
tracks.
think we have a picture and it shows a 2-story building would be on the east side of the tracks,
That
across
was-
from your,
No, that would have to be Norps or somebody else then, because if you came around that real sharp curve, you could go left into a road that Norps went into their fields, or you could go right and go into our fields that were on this side of the river, and then right down underneath that sharp bluff, down underneath there, that was where one of the first, and then right when you first went in, on this side of that little lane that took you, there was a foundation there that Dad said that some of them settled there first and then built another home there, and that's where Gus, his cousin, lived. that he was able to play with a lot because they just lived right there and they could run right up the creek and.
Well, now, are you talking about the road that went into North's property came off of Wilson Hollow Road?
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
did?
Let me see here.
Was that near the river?
Yes. Like, okay, if you came down Wilson Hollow Road, okay,
Mhm.
this driveway would take you into,
Your house. Okay.
right, and then if you came on our driveway, if you'd come and come up into the lot and then go back up to here,
That's
this is where the cemetery is.
Is it in the middle of the field or on the edge? of
No,
the
it's
field?
right up on a hill on the edge.
On the edge.
Because there's a road that runs up like this, and it goes right up past it and goes right down like it's gonna go into the fields. But see, those were owned by, they got sold to other people, the fields did. But there's a pond right there, and then the cemetery sits on a little knoll, and you can go right around it and go down it, and what that'll do is take you to the low bottom fields next, the river's down here. Now, on this one, if you came up here, you had this road that took you up to the,
Okay. And that's the one that has that bar across it today? Have you been down there lately?
no, I haven't. I don't go down there very much anymore.
Mhm.
It's too sad. They don't, the bridge is gone. They won't replace the bridge.
Was,
They won't replace the bridge that went.
was
That's
there
the
a
highway
bridge
bridge.
there, another crossing besides the railroad crossing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
there was a-
railroad's over here. The railroad trestle was here. This was a bridge we crossed over
Highway.
into San Francisco County. But before they built that bridge, there was another type of way. My grandma told me that there was time when the river was up and there was a priest that used to come from Old Mines and Tiff and Blackwell area and would come through, and if the water got up, then he would try to ford it. And when he would get caught or in a mess, he would always depend on the Wilsons to go down and bail him out, and they would, and bring him home and dry him off, feed him, take care of him, and then let him go on his way. But she told us many fun stories about things that they'd seen and experienced, and she talked about us being a little girl coming from Bolivar. She was only like 7 or 8 years old, and she and her brother, because of her mother dying when she was so young, her dad was trying to raise them, and father died, and they put them in a orphanage, and they were separated, and she never ever saw her brother again, never ever found out what happened to him or anything. And she was brought up to the Vineland area. There was a Dutch-German family that lived down, if you would go to Norps and go on down, you know, Klondike Road? Okay, down off there somewhere, there was a family that she was taken from the orphanage at around 12 years of age and being used as a slave. And she was basically, because she was to clean and cook and wait on them, and she was a little bitty tiny thing, and they beat her a lot. They abused her. When the Wilsons needed someone, because I think it was my great-great-grandmother Wilson apparently had gotten quite ill, and they needed someone to help out, they had gone up and made negotiations and asked if they could take her to help, and they let them. He went up, my grandfather, at the time my grandma was 14 and my grandfather was 16. He went up to get her, and when he was trying to get her home, she wouldn't put her arms around him to hold on. She sat behind the saddle on the rump of the horse, and she fell off 3 times before he could get her down to the farm. And the neat part is that she just absolutely fell in love with the family. They fell in love with her. She was a good helper, good worker, good cook, everything. And when she became, I think 16, she married my grandpa, who was 18, and then when she was 17, she had my father, and 7 years later she had my Aunt Blanche, the one that was married to Dr. Fallett. And she would talk about Grandpa chasing her down and nibbling on her ear and tickling her, and how close they were. So fun-loving, deep roots loving, and she would tell us all these stories because the family roots meant so much to her. That's how we were able to learn so much, was because our grandmother cared enough to tell us all of this. And her husband, Frank's sister, Blanche, moved into the Arnton area, and that's where my Edwin Cotting lineage comes from, because she married a Cotting, and she had Edwin, and then that family lineage we stayed tight with because they were from the Wilson side. And I remember Aunt Blanche because she was a tiny little about beanpole-like, and she was so fun to be with. She'd come up and visit, and she'd tell us the best stories and all kinds of stuff with us while we were kids and stuff. And on the days we lived on the farm, you didn't have TV, you didn't have, all that stuff to sidetrack you. You were outside a lot, you were working, you were playing, you were helping. It was just, I don't know how to describe it.
Different times.
Mm-hmm. And
Have you
then,
got this all written down?
no. I know somebody said that one day to me, why don't you write it up in a story, or why don't you talk into a recorder so your children can have it? And I said, that's what we said after Grandma died, was we wish that we would have had a recording of all the stories she told us, because we know we probably missed a few of them in remembering, or I love some of the songs she would sing. And I can only remember bits and pieces because I was such a small child. Possum up a gump stump, something up a holler, things like that. And you just don't hear that kind of thing now. And every morning when you woke up, you would hear her singing hymns or whistling. And she was about 5 foot, 4'11". But if you'd come, like instead of going up there, if you would come here, you would go around a really sharp curve, and then right here is the road to Narps.
Where would the bridge be?
Okay, this right here.
Okay.
And the road would go on down, and then ours went down, and you,
This is the one that has the gate on it, I think. It's a
this one.
ride and gun club. Or
Well,
something.
now that might be. They probably sold that off, and yeah, you're probably right. They may have. That's true. I haven't been down there because I just can't.
The block house. Okay. If,
It was back over here.
Here, these are the tracks, railroad tracks.
Right.
The block house looks like it's sitting here.
Hmm. But I
Are you
don't know.
saying Black house or
A block. A block
Block
house.
house, it's
Yeah.
called.
Block house. Okay.
But I don't think it's sold.
You'd have to ask Narps on that because that wasn't on our property. I remember my sister saying she'd seen it when she was out walking with some friends one time, but I had never been back there to see it.
Sure.
Um,
We have a picture that Blanche did. I guess she was into photography.
my Aunt Blanche?
Yeah.
Oh, not really into it, but she did
She
do pictures
did-
at times.
Well, there was a bunch of pictures we located at the college. It's
Oh.
somebody, I think she donated to
Yes,
the college.
yes.
And in one of those pictures, it says Block House, because I scanned them in and put them on a disc, and it says Block House on it.
Well, down
And you
here,
were looking from the river at the bridge, and you could see a part of a two-story building, which I guess is over here.
well, there was foundation. Like if you came in this one, there was a foundation right here. Okay? And we were told that there was also a bigger house built down here.
Now, this one, the one here, your house, is that the one that has the iron bridge across the creek?
Hmm. The
Okay.
one that looks like it's got this A-frame.
it's-
with it. My dad made that.
The planks, I don't think are there. We drove past there today.
What, they don't have the planks there anymore?
No, the frame is there, but the planks aren't there. They have a. it's
Oh,
either-
that big old horrible concrete thing that they did for the,
Yeah, it's some other kind of a bridge over the, next
well,
to
because
it.
what they did, see, was you'd come in our driveway and then Dad had this little lane that cut off and went down across the creek. This was the creek. And then, see, this was a swimming hole, had a big old catalpa tree that shaded it. But he dug it out so that we could swim in it, have deep water over our head and all that fun. And then he had this barn down here that he kept the truck in, and you'd come across the creek and you'd come up in through the fence and in the barn lot, and the barn sat there, and then you'd go past the barn and go out, because then you'd go out to the cemetery. Well, they came and bought that and put a big old horrible concrete with a pipe through the middle, and you're like, and then now, with the bridge being as old as it is, instead of replacing the boards, I guess they just went, eh. Because my dad came up with that, where he took beams, okay, and then he took beams on each side, and then he put this huge pole with big old, I don't know where he got them, big nut on top, and he put, like, I don't draw in 3 dimension, my husband can, but if this was like that size, the boards would be, like you're talking, from this beam over to the other beam, and then the other A-frame thing would be over. But he came up with that and built that himself. Did the welding and all and put it all together, and we used to love it. We'd go out and just swing on that pole, or he'd make stilts for us, and we'd walk across and try not to step in between the boards, because it'd make you fall. But, I mean, we had a lot of fun. Played down in the creek. Dad put crawdads in our suit just to listen to us holler. He was a jokester.
And
Yeah.
Blanche Follett was your aunt's, right?
Yes, she was my dad's sister.
Your aunt's sister.
No,
Dad's sister.
Blanche Follett was my father's sister.
Your father's sister.
Mhm. I've been told by some people I look a lot like her. I like that.
I know I found the pictures that were, I think she donated to the
Yes.
College History Center up there, and, oh, they're just so wonderful. And then we put them on a disc, scanned them and put them on a disc.
We've got some
Preserve.
here too. We've got pictures of people that, they literally put the names of who they are with it, and some of the history and everything's on the CD that our cousin did for us. But I think that she probably did that before she got real ill, because she had told us and impressed upon us certain things that she wanted given to the Historical Society and things like that.
Sure. Well, it's just a wonderful gift because it's timeless.
Mm.
They're just so precious, the pictures are, you know, it's just
Yeah.
snapshot in a period of time.
Yes. Now, we have some pictures my sister took that shows the farmhouse better, shows it in scenes of different seasons and snow and the bridge and everything, and that's nice to look back on too.
Sure.
In fact, I'd like her to see if there's a way she could get those scanned and put on a CD so we could all have it, you know, all three of us girls, because she's got the photo box that they were in, old photos, and I wanted to see if she could, you know, scan them and put them in a CD so we could all have them. But we haven't done that yet. You know how that goes.
Sure. The cemetery, no one in your family owns the property anymore down
Yeah,
there?
we own the cemetery, but no property around it.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is, you know, I'm sure everybody's told you I do cemetery research. Carol helps me pretty
Okay.
much. And, you know, we're photographing all the monuments.
Yes,
Yeah.
Posels did that.
Who did?
Charlie and
Norma
Norma
Posel.
Posel, when they wrote up the Vineland book, they came, I went with them, and we went down, and they did etchings and took pictures.
Well, we have what we have called the shaving cream method, where we put shaving cream on it with a paddle. And
Really?
the shaving cream doesn't hurt the stone, but you will be amazed.
At what comes out.
Oh, yes.
Really?
Yes. You can see stuff you can't even see with your eyes.
We're supposed to have easement rights to go back there, and we used to have a key to the gate so we could get in. I don't
know if it's locked now or not.
Right, I don't know if it's, I don't know where the key is,
That's how things show up.
Oh, yeah. That's shaving cream.
wow.
That's how the letters come out with shaving cream. I mean, you know how hard they are to read.
Yes,
And all you do is take a plastic paddle, sometimes a soft paddle. You can even use a piece of cardboard, put a bead of shaving cream on it, and just wipe it across there like you would body putty or putty
Right.
something in.
And
You
then
buy
it
these
puffs
little
up.
paddles
And
at
then you leave it
Walmart.
sit for a little while, and actually the shaving cream actually rises. You know, warm
That's
days. But
fascinating.
If you want to get rid of it when you leave, just take a terry cloth towel
Just
and
take a
rub
towel
over it
and
and
wipe
it
it out.
disappears.
you know,
Wow.
and I, you know, it doesn't hurt it.
No, I
Yeah.
wouldn't think it would either.
It would-
But the picture, you know,
Rain
everything's
washes
perfect
it
picture,
out.
and the picture's preserved. And what we've been doing is try to photograph all the old
Well,
cemeteries.
you're welcome to go out there anytime, as far as I know, and if they won't let you, then I'll go with you if you'd like me to.
Okay, yeah, I don't know, you know.
I'd have
What
to, see, I don't know who
Who
lives
is
there
there,
anymore.
who has the property now, Bev?
I don't
You
know
took a
for
picture
sure.
of
it.
Last I knew, it was McKinstry's. That's the last I knew, and I don't think they would have gotten rid of it.
Not Bruce. Bruce?
Yes,
Bruce McKinstry?
well, his dad is the,
Frank.
Frank McKinstry bought all that, along with the sons helping him. They bought all that bottom ground and the lot that has the barn, and they put that ugly on the creek and everything. And when we made the negotiations with them, Dad said specifically that they had purposely planted cedar trees all around the cemetery. And he wanted those left. And he said, I want a fence put in, and I want it put around that to include those cedar trees for the shade onto those to help retard wear and tear some.
Sure.
When he went to look at it, the fence was on the inside and all was left was stumps. They took every cedar tree, because cedar is valuable. Wood, sells good, makes good cedar posts, things like that.
Mm.
Oh well, life goes on.
That's why we try to photograph these, because we've gone back and seen so many that have been destroyed. The monuments have been destroyed and stuff. So
I hope they haven't. I know there's a lot of vines grown up around them,
we've worked it
ivy
all.
vines and stuff, but you want to be darn careful of copperheads.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, out in that area, if there's not a lot of, you better take a stick and just stir real good before you put your foot in there.
What's in there?
You wait till you get a
Copperheads.
frost,
Copperheads.
wait till you get a frost and then it'll.
Hopefully they won't be there.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, then it will.
Go in the ground.
They're
Yeah,
cold,
we have-
they don't like the cold, they'll be denned up somewhere.
Really.
Yeah, we haven't tried to go out there yet because I wasn't sure just exactly where it was. We look at aerial photographs and stuff a lot to determine where it's at, and now that we know.
Well,
with
if
the
you go down
pond-
21, like I say, if you were gonna go to Washington State Park and you were going down 21 and you passed, do you know where the Narps live, you said, their house? And you pass their house and you go about another mile, and then right on your left is Wilson Hollow Road.
Oh, yeah.
And you go down and
Go
right
from right
there to
there.
the farm, and then whoever lives there. Because see, the last I knew, Juans lived there, but I don't think they still do. In the farmhouse, they lived in the farmhouse, but I don't think they still do, but I don't know for sure.
Sure.
I don't go down there. The last time I was down there was when I went with Charlie and Norma to help them. And that only other time I've been down there was when a friend of mine that we've known each other for 40 years. And he used to come down and have parties with us down there on the river and stuff. Excuse me, and he wanted to go down and see the farm. And Rusty drove us down. And all I can remember is how he was so shocked because things had changed so drastically, and
Oh, sure, yeah.
it's just not the same, we kept saying. I don't even like to go look. I like the memory I have. I don't want that in my brain, what I see now.
When you talked about the little bridge that wasn't replaced, was that across that little creek?
Hmm.
No, it
Okay,
was
but
across
then,
the river.
No,
that's
oh, the
across-
one that, the big bridge that wasn't
you
replaced?
said there's a bridge that wasn't
Yeah,
replaced.
the one that went from Jefferson County to San Francisco County across Big River?
Yeah. was
Yeah,
across
when
the-
it fell
Across
in.
Big River.
Yeah, when it
Okay.
deteriorated, they
Which
shut
way?
it down and said nobody's crossing it anymore. And they would, because they've always fought, because it's half San Francisco County and half Jefferson
But
County.
there must have been a road going and coming that's no
Yeah,
longer
Wilson Hollow
used
Road.
then.
It's
goes.
it's old, is it Old E
It
Highway?
connects onto Old E Highway.
Old E Highway on the St. Francis County sign, and it's Wilson Hollow on
But you
this side.
can't get there now.
No, it's two
No.
dead ends.
You can drive to the boat
still
ends
drive
to
it.
the river,
Right,
but
To the
you can
river.
go,
can't cross.
do you know where, if you go down past Washington State Park and there's a road on the left called CC Highway? If you go down CC and grab Old E, like he said, and make a left, and follow E, it'll take you to where you can't go any farther and you'll be on the
Down the
other
river.
side of the bridge.
The other side of the bridge.
And then if you come back
Okay.
and go down Wilson Hollow, you'll be sitting on this side of the bridge.
Okay.
Because they do, and I didn't
It was
understand
across
why
Big
they
River.
refused to fix it, because, come on, you know? They're fixing the one in Blackwell. They almost weren't going to. People had to fight. You're like, well, what do you want to do? Just isolate people?
Mhm.
Everybody has to go far away out of their way.
Because I don't remember the context, but as I was reading newspapers this week, they also in one article talked about Wilson's Ford. And
That-
just before you mentioned the priest that came,
And
and you
forded the
mentioned the
river.
word ford.
Yeah.
So there must have been a spot where before roads, people crossed
Right.
the big river. There must be rocks or something. There must be a ford that was
Well,
named Wilson's Ford.
There's another Wilson farm that I know of that
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
sits on Big River too, off
Yes.
of Highway
Okay.
Y.
It's,
Oh,
yes.
Jim Wilson Road,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
all
could
that
have been
Yes.
family.
Oh, that
towards,
could be there too then.
Interesting.
There's a lot of Wilsons over at Grove.
But they're no relation of ours at all. I've been asked several times, but we're the only, of our lineage, we're the only ones. The others that were of our lineage lived in Indiana, and then they didn't have the Wilson name, but the lineage that lived in Arnton, and then there's just, they're all spread out now. It's like,
Different last names.
right, and people just get involved in family and spread out and not there anymore. But I don't know where they forded the river at the time, I don't, because I will tell you, if you came to the bridge there, it's deep down.
Okay.
You can't just like, if it's flooded, yeah, you could ford it, if you could keep from current taking you away, but other than that, it's both
Just wouldn't
sides.
use it to take a wagon through.
No, I don't think so, not unless you went on our property down into our fields and tried it that way, because there might be a spot or two. But
It's-
most generally, the height of those riverbanks were high enough
Okay.
that even when you put fields in, or cattle, you didn't have to worry. They're not gonna go down into that. It's too far depth-wise down into it.
Because usually a ford is like a natural spot that you can cross.
Like Pine Ford.
And I would
Out
assume
here.
somewhere, if that is within their property, somewhere along that terrain, it just came down low enough you're between two ridges or something.
And usually there's a gravel or
solid-
rock
some-
bottom of the
Something
river.
bottom.
that, yeah.
Solid bottom of the river.
I know that Grandma would say that the Indians must have stayed in that area because it was close to the river. And there was good hunting and good farmland and the river for water and stuff. As far as like, when like a tornado would come through, apparently it's very rare for it to ever follow the line of a river bed. Well, when I was around 16 and I was working at Washington State Park, we got somebody came in and told us, I got a scare, that the tornado had gone through our farm. So they shut everything down. It was early. We weren't even supposed to close yet, but we closed the park because Newman and Belva Cole, that ran it at that time, took me home and wanted to find out if our family was okay, because you couldn't get them by phone. The phones were out. The electric was out. It had followed the river bottom and then jumped and came up across and hit the granary that was on the main road, and then went up over the railroad and went down and hit, on Klondike Road there was a family of Muses was their name. They'd come down for weekends, and it hit their place and then went on up across and hit Solomon's that were way over off of, E Highway going to Bonne Terre. I mean, it did so, and I remember them saying, well, we're gonna all go over to Solomon's and we're gonna have a barn raising, because it had taken his barn out. So all the neighbor and farmers went over. Women would cook and send food, men would go over and put their labor in to help him raise the barn. We had a mess because we had all kinds of trees that were twisted off and all over the fields, and we had to clean all that up before you could cultivate again.
About what year?
I was 16, so
Oh, yeah.
16 on to 44,
Want me to add it?
70?
60.
60, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
1960, that's right.
Oh,
Because,
okay.
yeah, because I graduated in 62, but I worked at the Washington State Park for 4 years. Even when I went to college, I came back and worked in the summer there 2 years, two times. That was when Washington State Park had a beautiful dining lodge, and
Bev, when your dad found, I'm curious, when he found the Indian burial, did any of the state archaeologists or people that, kind of come to look to see what was there?
the only ones I remember was somebody that was connected with the park that he said he was going to donate it to. And then there was a guy that lived there when you'd cross Big River going down 21 and you'd end up in Washington County. There was a man, the last name was Wells, I think. He came a lot and would hunt for arrowheads and stuff, but he'd ask. But he came because he was so interested in all of that. That's the only ones I can remember that Dad said, because that was there when I was working at the park. So that had to have been like late 50s that they found it and put it in there, because I remember, being so proud that it was there and something our people of our farm had put in there.
This was on your farm.
Mhm.
Was it a single burial, or was it a mound, or
And
with multiple?
it had to have been buried, but you have to think about the number of years of change time, because see, when they went in and started plowing, Grandma used to tell us that my Grandpa Frank that married her, when he would plow and the skeleton would come up when the plow would hit it, he would have dreams at night that they came back and beat him because he disturbed their grave. And I mean, when they were first cultivating, they found a lot.
A lot of,
But that was rare for Dad to find one that was able to be preserved enough that they could come and say, look, this is the whole thing, because it had a little pot with it, and it had a tomahawk with it, and, I mean, different, what they call them, instruments and
Artifacts,
utensils, yeah.
1951?
And
6.
I don't remember any others,
So
but
you donated those things to Washington State Park?
yes, because they had all the petroglyphs over there and everything. So we thought that was a good thing to do.
sure.
It's gone. I don't know what happened to it. Somebody took it, they said.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any, you wanted to ask her about going to school?
Oh, No, if I could talk to you later on, there's the library organization in Jefferson County, they're doing an oral history project, and out of 6, 7, 8 topics they had, they decided to focus on people who went to one-room schoolhouses, but who lived through the transition to the public schools. What inconveniences to getting to the public schools, and you know, things of that nature. If I could just submit your name and phone number to them,
Okay.
so you can do a whole nother interview on tape.
My name's Beverly Sloan.
That I do get.
Okay.
And I guess a phone number or email, whatever's easier.
Either one, it doesn't matter. 586-4812 is my phone number.
Okay.
And the email is bsloan, all little.
SLOAN.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
At nightOwl, NIGHTOWL.net.
Okay. I know somebody else on Night Owl.
Night Owl, that's Eisenhower.
Tina? Isn't it Tina? Okay.
Yeah, Tina's
Tina Eisenhower.
yeah, she works for him, for Gary Johnson that
Yeah.
runs the Night Owl. Yeah.
Yeah, we met her with another cemetery.
Oh, be darn.
Oh yeah, we work the whole county.
Wow.
All 5
Well, I
corners.
like their services. We've been with them since they started. And now we have it as satellite, where we had dial-up, old phone lines that was slow.
I
Now
still
they
have it.
They
You
have
can go
satellite now.
Hughes,
They
too.
have to come and look at your area and see if it can get the signal. We set on a high enough hill, we can get it. They put the dish up on top of your house, and then we can pick the signal up from he's got an tar off of 10 House Road that we're picking up off of.
Oh.
I like it.
That might work.
I could waste 2 to 3 hours waiting for my emails to download.
Oh, I know.
And then you get rid of like 90% of them because they're spam.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or they'd send the grandkids pictures, and it would take an hour and a half for one email because it had pictures on dial-up.
Did you ever hear anything on the Civil War battle?
We don't have
itself?
anything.
No.
Okay.
Just the
at
fact that we've
house
got
is-
bullets in the,
Right.
that's the only thing. I don't remember anybody.
Are those rocks still down there by the house?
I don't know.
Don't
It's
know.
terrible. I haven't gone up close to the house.
Haven't gone to look.
It's hard. They say you can't go back. and like you said, sometimes just
I know
memory is
in
better.
the Follett pictures, there was one of a bunch of children on the bridge. Is one of them you?
That's probably. I'd have to look at the picture, because there's a lot of times they take pictures of us. Was it with Easter outfits?
Seems like.
Easter and Christmas.
Yeah,
Seems like
Easter
it
time,
could've
you'd have your little hat on and your new shoes.
All
and
dressed up.
That's true. Easter would be spring, and summer. I mean,
Mom would
Christmas
make our
would be-
dresses and everything.
Did you have copies of those pictures?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Because we can give you copies of those pictures.
Oh, you're talking about the ones she donated?
She donated.
No, I don't have any of those. I don't know which ones she gave. I'd love to have copies. If they could put them on a CD, then it would be
It's on
great.
CD, yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. I'll pay you for it.
No, we'll donate them to you.
Okay. I didn't get your name. I'm sorry.
Dave Holloman.
Oh, my pen doesn't work.
My email is.
It's A-L-L-E-M-A-N.
Well,
It's a
Here,
smooth dot.
Dave.
Hey,
Oh yeah, that's a Carol. There you go.
You got a
more?
card there?
I carry his card. Yes.
You
And-
carry more of my cards than I carry.
Carol, you're,
Goggin, here's my card.
oh, it's,
See
I
if
see
you
what
will all
you're saying.
notice
It's
that
an A,
this is
not an
the
O.
bridge at Vineland
That's a-
Blackwell,
Oh.
my new card.
Wait,
The
what?
Vineland Blackwell
Do you
Bridge.
have extra cards, Carol?
So
I only
there's
have-
Cheryl and
That's the
Dave Holland.
railroad bridge.
Yeah, see, I promote tourism too
Oh.
in the county, so all of my cards have different historic sites
Oh
on
my
them.
gosh.
Boy, I
Oh,
got
I
some
wish that we
stuff
could
in
have
there.
preserved the farm so that
So
that
would you
could
like
have been.
the
No,
Arlington?
That you could
like
take
the
people and say,
bridge.
yeah, the fort was here.
The
Yeah,
stone
these
house
had
stage
Civil War bullets
style.
in them. Yeah, there's a family cemetery back there.
Oh,
Oh,
and
but
the
Dad
bridge
said,
to put
I don't
with
want
your
the
pictures.
son-in-law's
I
fighting
want
over the
bridge.
property, so I'm gonna
You
sell
want
it.
a bridge? Yeah.
This is great.
I have a picture of
I
you
will
down
get
there.
you a copy.
You can send it through
You have
email.
an address I can send it to?
Uh,
Mail them to?
Let me see if I've got it.
I can write it down.
My problem is I don't think I brought any in my
That was
wallet.
my last Dave
I
card.
was gonna make new
So we
ones.
have
I
any
ran
in
out.
there, those picture discs?
Which one is it on, Dave?
I think it's on the one with all the pictures. Do we still have those in there? The
We've got two, let
I'll
me
bring
look
more
and
next
see.
time.
You'll have to look and see which,
I'll have to look, I'll pop one in your machine and I'll
I
look.
should have finally.
See if
Okay.
it's-
You want me to write it down for you? Oh, 12437.
Well, I have the ball rolling, it's kind of going a little
Oh.
slow right now, that we
Whipple
might
Will.
get the Bjorn Cemetery renovated.
WHIP. P.
Where's that?
back in my dad's barn.
OOWILL.
Asked me, he said, "How you doing
Drive.
down there?" And I said, "Fine." He
Like
said,
the
"Anything you
bird.
need?" And I
And
said,
that's DeSoto?
DeSoto.
"Yes, I
DeSoto.
need this cemetery renovated because it's got such huge
Somebody
stones."
to lift
Like
the
I say, I really-
stones.
I said,
Yeah,
"I
I can
can't."
do that someday.
You know, those
Well,
stones are
I'll tell you
about
what,
4
I'll
feet
call-
in length.
But we're probably,
Yes.
we're kind of waiting for the
And
news
they're
tonight.
probably.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Children or
And
kids
the
have
children
well,
here.
just
come over or
Like I
all
said, you
day?
don't wanna get out
Yeah,
there.
they
if
just-
Oh, we get
But
after
they're
all
about
the
a
Copperhead
foot
rattlesnakes.
square.
Oh, yeah, there's those too.
Huge.
We didn't have them on
I'll
our
bring
farm,
you
they were on
some
Washington State
And
Park
thanks.
property.
And anyway,
But a lot of times, you know,
I
people.
was talking to them
they-
and
well,
they're
no, you can't
interested
go
in
back to
it.
private
Do you have an
cemetery,
Arlington
Well,
one too?
if you
that I
ask,
could have?
though,
Because
you
your
can
picture
go.
was taken in the
And I know
Arlington.
that when
That'd be
Charlie
great.
and Norm and I went, there wasn't nobody that said anything.
Okay,
We just went through the
terrific.
gate and drove all the way back there.
There.
Well, you knew where you're going.
Well, that's true.
That one is cleaned up because
There you go.
the banner that goes
There's a
across
disc
the
with all
top,
the
open
pictures.
for
In the
breakfast,
History Center.
all this.
And there's a lot of
I'm
other pictures,
cleaning up the
historic
pictures
pictures
so
of
that you
Beverly County
see.
also.
Oh,
Wow.
doesn't it look handsome?
No, that's yours.
No, I've got other, he made a number of these, and we gave them to schools and libraries, Bev, so.
Oh, thank
So
you.
you have sisters or something?
Yes.
That need
My
copies?
sister in
Let me know and I'll
Florida
get them a
would
copy.
love this, and my sister, and she's moved to Bowling Green
Sure.
in Missouri here, and she would love it too. Oh,
Just
wow.
Let me know how many you need and I'll make them.
I'm,
Really?
you see what we got left in there, Dave?
Yeah, I can make new ones, you know.
Cause I've got, I think maybe a
Two
couple
more?
more.
Well, yeah, well,
3 more?
3, because I'll give one of them to Kirk, who put all of our history together.
That's fine.
Because
If
he
you
made
got-
this for us, and I brought and made a copy.
Is that the one you gave me, Dave? You
This
gave
Yeah.
me that one?
That one.
Yeah, okay,
You should have a copy, don't you? Yeah.
yeah, okay, I got that one.
Yeah, I was fortunate, I found them up there, come across them up there, and so I just took my laptop and my scanner over there
Oh,
and scanned them
wow.
over for college.
Oh,
And then
that's
put them all together with all
wonderful.
these other historical pictures we've
Yeah.
got, so.
My grandson is so artistic.
I sold my laptop and
He
was
can do
planning
it
on
too.
getting another one.
He's,
I'll tell you, on the
he took
Bible,
photography
What
at
works really
college,
good, you get digital camera,
and he,
take a picture of the pages,
Really?
it's
of
very
the,
good.
The list of the Bible there.
And he
you know.
was just
Yeah.
getting
Oh, yeah.
extra
It'll be-
credits.
It'll be a lot better than the
I
mimeograph.
love cleaning up
It's on the
pictures.
back.
And he has
See
just
what I
taken
mean?
Yeah,
some of
this here,
those beautiful.
It'll work a lot
I bet
better,
he's,
it'll actually be original, and you can blow it up on the
Blow
computer and
that
stuff
thick.
like that.
Okay.
Look at
and
individual
his
letters,
clouds,
if you're
pictures
unsure
of
of
clouds, you know,
Okay.
the
oh,
other
it's
stuff, you know,
gorgeous.
so.
Wow. This Bible was huge,
Mhm.
and I was amazed at the stuff that were in here as far as dates and all that. Just,
Now, the vineyard name, does that go to the vineyards in Festus?
you know,
Does
we're
that
not
depend
sure.
on-
I don't think so. But we have a friend named Vineyard that's down in Caledonia now. He lives.
Well, one's V-I-N-Y-A-R-D and one's V-I-N-E-Y.
I've got
Right,
several others
right.
of that one that you did, but I've got one more of Wilson's of Vinyl, but that's all that's left.
Thank
of
you.
That particular
So you need some more of those?
disc, yes.
What is that called?
Jefferson County Historical Society.
Okay, it's honey.
Wow.
So how many more did you want of those, Bev?
I just need one more now.
For
since you've given me
Claudia
two.
and-
I'm gonna give one to Claudia, one to Lily, and one to Kirk that put our stuff
You need,
together.
how many more do you
And
need?
I just need
and then
one
will
more.
you have
One more.
one for yourself?
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't, sorry.
You're gonna
I'm
get
thinking
more.
of everybody else.
You need 2 more.
I need 2 more, I'm sorry. I forgot about me.
Yep, you need 2 more.
And I can make a copy of this for you if you want it,
Sure,
because it's,
oh, yeah.
the lineage and the pictures of the ones, like, to give you an idea, I guess, is, yeah, you were talking about the vineyard thing. We sent him down in Caledonia, because he's looking up the lineage, and they've got in some of these, V-I-N, and E in parentheses, and then the Y-A-R-D, because there are people who, hey, think about something. As I was raised, and you look at names like Chouteau was the way I always heard it, and then it was Courtois, and then it was Courtway. I mean, it got changed, and then also when Manus is all we knew, and then Manus, or Sanssouci, but they call it Sanssouci in other areas, and things like that. So that's why sometimes things got changed, and maybe you...
Well, I pronounced it Sanssouci because we knew a man, his name was Earl Sanssouci, and that's the way he pronounced
Well,
his
yeah,
name.
right, all around here we did, but when you go to the city, that's, my dad got so tickled when we got television
Oh,
and somebody
yes,
said
and the television
Sanssouci.
people, what they
There,
do with some of the
something like
names.
that, or this.
Oh, yeah.
Hot
This is
aside.
on, this is one of the
Yeah.
pictures on that disc.
Okay, well, then those are on
One
there
of the guys
already
at the
then.
health
You
department
probably
was
got what's here.
pronouncing
I
hematite,
don't
hematite.
recall this one.
And I said it's hematite.
Okay.
The guy's got
And
his
every time
telephone
he would
here.
mispronounce it, I would
Yeah, well,
correct
my
him.
grandpa and them
You know
used
he
to
did
work
that on purpose, just to
on the
bother you.
railroad.
He's
I
very
mean,
Well,
on the
you know,
tel,
you
they
get
helped
these
put the
announcements
telephone
that
lines
come from
down,
other
they helped get the
places.
electric
They
lines
don't know
down.
how
They
the-
worked on the
We had
railroad.
a-
My
an
grandfather
engineer
worked for every one of
chemical
those
plant
companies
that,
and helped
said that
instigate.
Joachim
And then my
Creek.
grandmother had him
He
moving all
says
the
they're
time.
pronouncing it
They
wrong
went
around
to the
here. He says that's
1904 fair
Joaquin.
in San
And I
Luis.
said, hon, let me tell you
They
something.
moved to Indiana when my
You can call it whatever
Aunt
you
Blanche
want
went to
but
college.
It's gonna be called Joachim
And some of the
around
friends
here
they
by
made
the
up there were
natives.
still friends with.
Around here.
They moved to
You're
California,
gonna
but it
get
didn't last
Joachim,
long.
I don't care if somebody wants
Came
to
back,
call
lived in
it
DeSoto for a while, and then moved back to
Joaquin
the
or
farm.
something else.
What's Washington?
On the pictures that
Well,
I have on that disc.
They call it, but I
The
don't
captions on
think
the
that
bottom,
Mhm.
Swashern ever
that,
came from
Blanche had wrote on the back of the
Joachim now,
picture.
maybe.
On the
It was
front?
on the front.
Could
Okay,
have.
well, he did this too.
I
When he
think
put
that
this
was
together,
an
he
Indian
wrote
name
it. So I
for
will,
it.
Okay.
your card's got your address, I'll be
But
able to
I-
give you
No,
a
I don't
copy.
think it has my address. Let me hear.
I know of, the guy
You
that
write it
wrote
on there for you.
Missouri place
Okay.
names, from, that he has.
Cause see, this is the
has
one
said that
here,
this has been
this is,
one of the puzzles is that name.
they told me
I read
they
somewhere
were
that
standing
it was
on a
named after a
hillside,
family
kinda
name,
sorta, can you
Joachim
kinda
family?
tell by looking? That they were standing kinda on a hill. My grandfather wasn't real
I don't know,
tall,
who
but this is my grandmother, my grandfather, and then this is Aunt Blanche, and this is Daddy, and this was Aunt Rach, we called her. This was my grandma Nettie, my grandpa Frank, this was Aunt Blanche, that was my dad, and this was Aunt Rach, related to Frank
I
Wilson.
just love pictures.
I guess because I was born when
I
I was
know,
15.
it's so
and
small.
I was
Family
Oh,
pictures.
in all of our pictures.
Beautiful,
So the only thing I
the
pictures that I
Browns.
have through the years
Oh.
when we were
So are you
younger
on the
was what
backside of the
friends, relatives shared with me.
They were,
Yeah, yeah.
I think they
Happens.
were, at the time, I think they were, what do you call it, in the, yeah, the side of the house, like,
This is
this
in
is the front,
some
this would
book,
be
and
the
I
side,
can't remember
yeah,
what it was
mhm.
in.
Because, and there was like a little
I've
knoll
never seen it before.
there, because you could see
Well,
how they're like,
I'm remembering
Going
this
down.
scene up
See?
here.
and this is
Yeah.
like, he said they had telephone
That's
gear, he
not
was
good.
working on the lines out there, but I don't know his name right
This
off, I'd
could
have
be
to
a
go back
little
in here
house
and look.
boy, you know, there was
Yeah.
one boy was killed too, and one
Because my
had the
grandfather
kids with.
worked on all
I
of them.
think two
Dave,
others
are these
survived.
pictures that are on here, are they identified who the people are?
Yeah,
But
they,
no
Bev had,
woman
or,
is mentioned.
Blank.
Blanche had wrote on the
It was
back,
a-
whatever was wrote on the
Oh, here's
picture,
one
I
down
put on the
already.
front of,
Okay.
That's
of
him,
it,
I
so,
guess, Adam.
you know, that helps identify it for future references. I did that with all the pictures I did
It
over
was
there.
a rather
This was
gory
my
description
uncle.
before
Well,
you
not
knew.
really. We were
Yeah.
taught to call him that. He was a cousin. I talked about my grandpa Frank
This looks like
had a sister
woman
Blanche.
here, yes.
Well,
See,
that was his
this
mother.
was taken
Okay,
from some
he
other
lived to be
location,
100.
I guess.
And the sad part was
That's
he was
interesting.
living on his own until he was 99, and he fell on the ice one morning when he went out to go get the mail. And his daughters put him in the nursing home the next winter for fear, after we'd had his big birthday party on his 100th birthday, because they were fearful that he would fall and nobody would find him or he would get hurt or something. And he thought they were putting him in there for good. And we would go down and visit and reassure him, no, they're not, no, they're not. And he was supposed to have gotten out in the spring and gone back to his home. And he caught a touch of a flu that was going around within the home, and you know how that is. And when he went in the hospital, he got a staph infection and died. And this is his family. Some of them are in Seattle, some of them are in Springfield, and some of them in California, and some of them are in
So
St.
now
Louis.
this is your dad's sister's?
Clan. This is my dad's sister's son, and that's his wife. And then he had 3 daughters. And they
Okay.
used to kid Dad, and he used to kid back and forth all the time. They couldn't have boys, and then look, they had boys. And then this was, Aunt Lara was his older sister, and she married Lee Barger. And I loved their home. They had the most gorgeous 3-story home with the full wraparound porch down in Arnton. Oh, I love to go down there and stay.
Now, you just said Aunt Laura is his wife, but who's he that you said?
Lee Barger,
Mark. Okay.
B-A-R-G. Here, I've got her on the back if you
No,
want.
I'm hearing the names.
Okay. Just trying to look to see if there was anything else I could give you that would help. no, that's the Ironton Depot, but you know what, it looks so close to ours, it's not even funny.
Where was the depot at, you talking the Vineland Depot?
Mhm.
Where was it at in Vineland? By the crossing?
Well,
there?
yeah, where you would go down to Narp's place, there was like a little platform, not a depot, it was just a little platform, and there was a place where the people that, the main, what would you call it, terminal, depot, whatever, that was the general store down below. Down when you'd come up around the curve and then come up and go across to Narp's, there was a platform there, and there was a place that you would, mail would be delivered to the general store, and they would take it in a big bag, and they would put it on a pole that hung out, and when the train went by, the guy would grab it,
The mail hook.
and then throw the other bag out
I have a
onto the
picture of the mail hook
platform.
and hematite.
Yeah, and they'd throw the other bag out on the platform, somebody would pick it up and take it, and then they'd deliver it. And
So the general store served as a place where if you wanted, could you catch the train there?
I think so. I mean, you could make arrangements to, but you'd have to go up to the platform to get on the
Yeah.
train. But that general store had, when you'd walk into it and you'd go to your right, there was like two big glassed-in counters, and they had big old cheese that had cheesecloth wrapped around it, longhorn cheese they called it, and they had like meats and stuff that they'd cut, and they had a big barrel that was full of eggs, because the
They call it
local people would
Colby
bring them and sell them to him, and then he'd put them in the barrel, and then you'd buy them, and then you had like the big barrel of pickles and all of that, and then on the other side was the saloon, and it had a bar all the way around, and they served beer all here. But on that back wall, that was a candy counter, and you'd go buy penny candy.
You get everything at that, it really was a
Yeah,
general
That's
store.
the general store.
Yeah, it was the general store.
Yeah,
We
Was this at the intersection where Vineland Road and Wilson Hollow come together?
Yeah,
On,
It's-
like right there in that V?
where the, used to be a general store there, and it, same people that bought the land from my ex-father-in-law, bought the, and it burned, bought the store. And it's never been replaced, but there's a spring. You see this concrete, there's a spring there. That thing used to run constantly, great big, we had a spring house on our property that would run that big all the time, and we had a big wooden top on it, and in the summertime, Dad would take it and put watermelons in there, and they'd chill. And then we would dare each other, how long can you hold your arm under the water? Well, it'd be almost numb. You know, the cold water would be so cold, and then see, it would run, they built the spring house over that with a runoff that run down and had like sidewalks on each side, and then the stream ran down through it. It was running down through a little creek that would run into the creek
That's
down
what
there.
caused the war at House Springs. They built the house over the spring, and then the Indians couldn't.
Oh, well, now, see, this was on our property, though, and they put the milk in there.
Yeah,
They
but
put the buckets of milk in there, and then you'd have to go over and get the buckets of milk and bring them home, and then when you milk again, you'd go back and set it in the cold water, and that's what kept it fresh. And then
Spring at Vineland have a name?
Vineland Springs, all I ever heard. Vineland Springs, that's all I ever heard it. In fact, when we first had the place up on the hill, Jimmy and his brother and I would go down there and fill up big jugs of water to take up to the house for us to have for water, because the toilet was a chemical toilet. We didn't have plumbing. We had electric, but we didn't have plumbing. So you'd always take big jugs of water so you'd have plenty of
well,
water.
I know that at one time Blaine and I, would drive down there, and I was always amazed at the amount of water that came out of that spring that went down
Vineland?
there at Vineland, yes.
Is
Is
that,
it a bit-
now,
can
what
you
was the
see it
spring? Was the
today?
spring where the lakes are on the other side of the road?
When you see those, when you
Probably
came
see
down
it
from
all.
Wilson Hollow, if
Something
you
I
make a
wanna talk
left
about
to get
today
onto
was
Vineland
springs.
Road, right there's a concrete, like a big concrete mound type looking piece of brown concrete. That's where it was, but I don't think it's running like it used to. Because ours quit. They had a pipeline they dug and put all the way under, would you believe, all the way underground from the spring, across the spring lot, under the creek, up and in, pumped it into had a pump in the basement, and pumped spring, that's what our water was spring water, till the sonic booms started when they were testing, and they were doing it over our place a lot, and they think that it shifted the plates, and then it got to a trickle, and then it quit. So we had to dig a well.
Well, I thought maybe when they started building so many houses down there and people started drilling for wells, that they hit, that
The same aquifer.
That, yes, and then they just actually you see that happen in these
water-
That's
subdivisions
possible
where
for the
they
one
have
in
to
Vineland.
drill,
That's
that the
possible.
springs just are gone.
They hit the table that they come across through, because that could have happened for up there where the Vineland one is, but the one on our property had quit already because of whatever shifted, and we don't know where it was refed to or where it went, you know, from there. But I know we used to love to go over there and play, and there was mint that would grow back there in the back, and we would collect it and bring it in. You'd put like mint in your tea.
Our watercress?
Yeah, they had that too. Yeah. Or we used to catch frogs, and then along the creek too, we'd eat them. Frog
Sure.
legs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very good.
very good. They were big.
I was gonna say, were they the appetizer or
No, they
were they dinner?
You would only get, you'd
Those
only
frog
take the
legs.
big bullfrog because you wanted the big muscle of the legs,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
But we didn't, I
Frog
mean, we
legs are
didn't do it
good.
a lot because
Have
they're
you ever
good.
eaten
They eat bugs and stuff.
I've eaten snail.
Oh, I ate escargot. Oh, I love it. If it's fixed right, oh, it's so good.
Keep the snail, just give me the glorified butter.
Oh, no. And I've eaten squid. I've eaten octopus. Well, we lived in Florida with Claudia and I. We're raised to where we'll try just about anything to see what it tastes like. Meaning, you know, I've eaten rattlesnake. It tastes like chicken.
Crocodile?
No, never had a chance
Alligator?
to do. Never had- No, yes.
Shark
Yeah.
is quite available.
And then when I was
I'd be in
married to
trouble
Jimmy,
because
we
I
caught a
just couldn't
fish down in
taste it.
Florida once, and it was they called it a dolphin, but it wasn't like the porpoise dolphin ones. It was a big fish, huge, and it had like a snub nose, but it had the most beautiful green and blue and yellow coloring. And the guys that were on the boat that we caught it on told us that it wasn't good meat to eat, but it was wonderful to mount. So we're like, okay, we'll have it mounted and mailed home. Then when Claudia and I moved to Florida, I had a date with a gentleman that took me to an Italian cuisine restaurant, and dolphin fillet was on the menu, and he said, "This is excellent, you should try it." And I said, "Those wonderful dolphins." No, not those kind, he said. The ones, and he described it, and I said, "I caught one of those once, and they told me it wasn't good eating." He said, "Yeah, well, they gypped you out of your meat because they knew it was, and they could sell it and make more money off of it than they could letting you take it as a tourist. What were you going to do with it?" And I'm like, "You didn't give me that option, though." And then I ate it. Oh, it's delicious. I love fish, though, of all kinds.
I do too, I like fish.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
So we talked about this. We had the spring.
Mhm.
We talked about railroad and the blockhouse,
And the school,
the school.
bridge.
What else
Civil
is
War.
historically farming? What kind of farming did the family do?
We put in corn and alfalfa mainly, and we raised Black Angus registered, over 100 head of Black Angus registered cattle all the time, and then we would always have a big herd of hogs, and you would have like mostly sows, and you raise the little pigs, and then sell them off to the market. And a lot of our corn and alfalfa was feed for our animals. We had a milk cow, and we always put a huge garden in, and Mom always canned everything. We just literally lived off that
And I
farm.
forgot, did you say you had cold storage outside or?
We had that
Cellar
spring house.
storage?
Yes, we did. We had a cellar that she put all of the canned goods in, and then in the fall, when we would dig up the potatoes and all that, and the turnips and everything, there was a bin that you rolled them all out and spread them out, and then you would hang the onions, and all the different stuff would go down in that cellar.
Like a root cellar?
Yeah, that's right. That's what it was. And they had like on top of it, we called it the old kitchen, because when they originally built the house, that's where the kitchen was. Because of the heat factor, you put it away from the house. And then when they turned it into just storage, it sat over that root cellar. The kids, we'd all play in it. It was fun.
We used to have a cellar and I hated my mother'd make us go down there and churn.
Oh, well,
And she'd shut the door.
no, we didn't do that. We'd always do it in the floor in the kitchen. Mom,
No,
because,
she did it in the cellar because it was cooler.
yeah, nope. Well, we had this
I
kind
hated
though. We had that one where you turned.
Yeah, we did too.
It was in the jar, and then
glass.
Well,
yeah.
this one was a big square metal can. It was,
No, ours was
as I
a
recall,
big.
it was about this high.
Ours was a big square jar, and glass jug, jar, whatever you want. It was pretty big, but we took turns. Willie and I'd sit on the floor and take turns turning it. And when it got too hard to turn, then Mom finished it. Then she'd have this big bowl, I've still got it, she would dump that into, and she would drain all that buttermilk, called it, off of that, and Dad loved it. And then I would watch her knead the milk out of that butter. And when she reached a certain point, she'd have a loaf of homemade bread in the oven, and we'd just sit there and wait. Because then we'd get the heel of bread of the new bread, and then slap that fresh butter on.
My
Eat
mom
it.
had always
Oh.
used a spoon to stir the butter with because her hands were so hot. It would melt
Oh.
the butter.
Yeah.
I've watched my mom set up till wee hours canning, because it takes like the time level of, she had a huge pressure cooker that would take 16 quarts. Oh, yeah, if you didn't do it like that, you'd never get done. But we put up everything. She put our juice up, she put our tomatoes up, she put our vegetables up, we had stuff we raised. She made our bread, she did our pies and cakes and all that. And then we had the beef fresh all the time, pork fresh all the time, chickens, eggs. She made our butter. I remember her making the cottage cheese and the cheesecloth and hanging it out on the line so it could drain and ferment. But it was good.
I was able to get some fresh milk. I can't say who would give it to me because they get canned. Anyway, I made cottage cheese,
Did you?
and it was so good.
I know.
Oh, it
It's
was so
so
good.
different. If the cows got into the acorns or garlic, and
Yeah.
you couldn't get the milk, I mean, you couldn't drink the milk. You'd have to literally milk them, but then you'd have to pour it out to the hogs or to the cats, because the cats were always there waiting. You'd squeeze it and they'd sit up and eat it, drink it. But the milk Mom would buy at the store, it was like Blue John. That's what we called it.
What is Blue John?
Oh,
Um,
cream taken out?
Yeah, it's like when Mom would put the milk in the separator,
Mm-hmm.
and all the cream rises to the top. It's like a real golden, light golden color, and it's thicker. And all on the bottom has a blue hue to the white. And when she would drain that off, that was Blue John. That's what they called it, because it didn't have any cream in it.
In other
no
words,
fat
that
in
was
it.
skimmed milk.
Yeah, there you go. That was skimmed
It
milk.
was water to them,
But
right?
she left a part on the top of each quart, so that when that cream got to that point, then she would put cream on the top, and then before we could drink it, she'd stir it and then pour it in our glasses. And then a lot of times Uncle Doctor would, because I was so tiny and I was hyper, I didn't, burned it up, but I couldn't, I was a little tiny thing. Put some more cream in her milk, she needs pounds on her. You're like drinking half and half.
I don't ever
I won't
remember
drink milk to this
drinking milk.
day, hardly. Once I got out of the house, I wouldn't hardly drink milk anymore.
Okay, now you just said Uncle Doctor.
Yeah, my Aunt Blanche's husband, Uncle Dr. Vallet, Dr.
Okay.
Charles Vallet.
Okay. It's just a funny way to say Uncle Doctor.
That was what she called him, Doctor.
There are people who would have Doctor for a first name.
Well,
So I
there was a
I
friend
just
of ours that's what
clarifying.
his name. We called him Doc because his initials were Dr. Garrett.
I had an Uncle Doc, he was a dentist.
But he was a doc, okay. My other question is, and this probably would have to be just you listening to your parents and grandparents talk about the Depression. Did they even feel the Depression being on a farm?
My mom did before the farm ever came about. She went through it before her and Dad got married.
Oh, okay.
She would tell us about how hard it was for them to get by, and that, see, her mother had 5 children and her husband died.
Okay, now what's your mother's name then?
She was a Hubbard. She was a Hubbard.
What was her first name?
Vanita.
Okay. And so she is local Jefferson County then?
Yes,
Oh,
she
okay.
was from here in DeSoto.
Okay.
Her father died when he was only about 44 years old. She and her sister, Lola Berry. Lola went out and got married, and Mom was the next oldest, decided to stay and quit school and go to work to help raise the other kids. And she learned what it was to scrimp to get by. And I think Dad used to say, you might get mad at her sometimes because she was a fanatic about it, but if you've ever gone through the Depression and you learn how to be conservative, you honor things more or appreciate things more. And my mother was one of those, and she tried to teach that to us. And then when they got older, my dad would say, I wouldn't have nothing if it weren't for her. Because she knew how to save, she knew how to keep books. She did all of that for him, and it was a tough time.
Hey, I still wash
apparently.
plastic bags.
Pardon?
I said, I still wash plastic bags.
I do too.
Just
I
put your
do
drop or two of soap in there and put some hot water in there and seal it up and shake it up right good.
Did you know Oprah Winfrey does too? Because of the way she was raised, and she figures she's saving the environment by not throwing them all away, just reusing them.
The only thing I don't use them is whenever they're
If they're really greasy or
if they're greasy, I throw
there's
them
something in them
away.
that you just don't want to fight it.
Or if they get
Second or third
tear in or
use.
something. But they're still good.
I know. I agree with you. My mother used to make all our clothes when I was a kid. The sacks of feed and all. Because, see, they married during the World War II. All of the feed came in floured sacks, cloth, that she
They
could
used to
save.
wash them and sew
She
them
made
together
our
and make
sheets.
sheets out of
She
them.
made our sheets, our pillowcases, our dishcloths, our dresses out of them. And then the flour and stuff that we got. We didn't buy like 5 pound bag of flour. We bought bag of flour, bag of salt, bag of
50
sugar.
pound bag.
Big, yeah. And then they put them in the same thing, and you could use them for different things. I mean, I remember every spring, we'd have to take the mattress off, get a bucket of water and a rag, and we'd have to go down in each one of them springs and wash it out. Because we didn't have box springs. Call springs that you set your mattress on. You had to take a wet rag and take all the dust and dirt out from each spring. You have to run your hand down in there, each one.
So you all shared chores inside and outside? What were some of your chores?
Helping Mom clean house, helping her cook, helping her in the garden. Once in a while I'd get, not very often, I got to go out and help in the fields, take a hoe. She'd put a big straw hat on us and a dress with nothing under it, so with the heat factor. We'd go down and help Dad when the corn got high enough that the plow couldn't go through without damaging it. We would go down and hoe out any of the Johnson grass to prevent it from taking over or doing it. We'd do that, and he would take us to the woods to help him do mending fences, and we'd walk the fence lines and help him. Looking for mushrooms, that was fun. And I guess I was because I was so little, and Lily was older and bigger, and she was the one that got to go on the farm tractor all the time and got to drive everything, and I didn't get to until I was probably 16, 18, something like that. Like 16, 18, something's like right around in there I got to drive some, because Dad came up the first time I ever drove the tractor. He comes up out of the field and he's like, "You're going to have to come down with me. I'm going to go get the other tractor. You got to take it down and pull me out because I'm in a hole down there." I'm like, "What? I don't know how. You never let me. I'm going to teach you. You're going to learn right now. Come on, let's go."
You're not going to learn any younger.
That's right. So he took me down, showed me what to do, put me on the tractor. We pulled it out. He said, "Now you drive it home." And you're like, "Ah!" I go through the lot going, "Mom, look, I'm driving the tractor." Because that was big for me, because Willie did it all the time. It's common for her. And then he even let me plow some and do some things like that after I loved it.
And your sister's name was Willie.
Willie, but we called her Willie.
Was it for William?
No.
Like somebody
Well,
wanted a boy
so-
and it was a girl?
They were told she was going to be a boy.
Okay.
But my mother had a friend named Willa May, I believe it was, but they called her Billy, which I don't know why, but she used the name Willa from her dear friend. And then my grandfather Frank's middle name was Lee. My grandmother that he married, Nettie, middle name was Lee, so she pulled the Lee in for that part. And then Willa Lee named her daughter Lee Ann, because she named her after the Lee name, and then brought the Ann in from one of her aunts that was on my mom's side.
How's Lee spelled?
Lee.
There are so many Lees in my family. It's unbelievable.
Really? Wow. And we named our son John after, like I said earlier, because of the family inheritance names and stuff. And then his brother is named after his dad and his dad's dad and his dad and his mom's dad, Bernard Duffner, because James William is from our side, plus his dad's dad had a middle name William and my dad had a middle name William. Then JB is named James Bernard Norris because he's named after Bernard Duffner. That was my mother-in-law's dad, and then his dad's name, his dad's dad's name, and his dad's dad's name was James. So, and there were Bible names, James and John, good Bible names.
genealogist's delight to
Mhm.
see names coming forward like that.
Then you have the guy that loses a child, and they have another one, they name him the same
The
name.
same name.
Oh, I don't
Yeah.
understand that.
I don't either.
I don't understand that.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
The only change that you have is the date of birth.
Well, my mother named us by way of she wanted to name me after my Aunt Blanche. And my Aunt Blanche's name is Blanche Esther. And she said, don't you dare name that girl Blanche Esther. Because she didn't like the middle name Esther. I would have loved it. I thought that was kind of neat. But anyway, she said, don't do it. So she said, well, she wanted something to go with Blanche. Well, she finally found Beverly that they agreed on, so they put me as Beverly Blanche. So I'm named after my aunt. When Claudia came along, they named her because Claudia's name, my cousin Edwin, Cotting that we talked about, his youngest name was named Claudia. But Mom liked the name and so did Dad, so they took it. And Dad talked Mom into using her middle name, May. And so Claudia's middle name is May, M-A-E, not M-A-Y.
What nationality is Wilson?
Then you have the people that name
I-
their child
English,
John Philip, and the other
I
one
think
Philip
so.
John.
I think we're more English, and then there's a little bit of French, because I had a great-great-grandmother named Soufflot that married a Wilson, came over from France.
I see.
So there's a little bit of French in there. And I'm trying to remember.
Soufflot, they're
They're over
in
in
Swashen.
New Swashen.
Really?
Soufflot was, yeah.
Two of them.
There's two of them up there, I think.
Well, my Aunt Blanche, when they went to Europe, she went to Paris, and outside of Paris, she found well, it wasn't just outside, but it was in the realm of that area. There was a street named Soufflot, and she was all excited, because,
You never know.
no, that's true.
But that name is gone
Did you
here,
get-
isn't it?
Hmm. I haven't heard it anywhere except from my grandmother. Watch-
Well, I know my cousin has a tablecloth that his mother started back in 1927. She'd have people sign the tablecloth, and she would embroider it to preserve the name. And through the years, he has almost 1,000 names on there of popular people.
Wow.
And he even has one of the last survivors of the Titanic. And he went to England and got her signature, and he got so excited because her maiden name was his family name, which is Light.
Oh,
So he just knows that they're related.
isn't that something?
Just took a tablecloth to connect them.
But anyway, if you're interested in it, go on the internet and just go thetablecloth.com.
Wow. And you can see it?
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
I do have one more question.
Sure.
With the chores and all, were you required to get up early and do them, or did you do them after school, or was it
Well,
seasonal when you had
it-
daylight before
yeah.
school or in
Right.
the morning?
When we had school, normally, when we were little going to school, there wasn't that much chores. It was just get up, get ready, go to school. But in the summer, you had lots and lots to do. In the latter years, when you got older, you were expected to do a lot more. And it was like, in the evenings, I was in charge of feeding the chickens. That meant I had to go down to the corn crib, get the corn, set and shell it, take the bucket of shelled corn up to the chicken house, and then I made sure they had their feed out and their water and used to feed them these crushed oyster shells because that's supposed to help them, but they were chickens that ran around on the ground and stuff. But I mean, I was responsible for closing the chicken house every night, and that was my job. And then sometimes I'd be asked to go feed the pigs, and once in a while you'd go out and help feed the cattle. We took turns when we got up old enough to do so. Willie and I would take turns in the evenings to milk the cow. Dad did it in the mornings, but we had to do it in the evenings. And then when we got to be like 15 and 17, Dad and Mom took their first vacation, just the two of them with Newman and Velva Cole, and went to Florida to feel it out, to get an idea if they wanted to retire there or not, when they did retire. And they left us in charge of the farm, and my little sister was too small to be much help because she was about 9, I think. No, if I was 15, she was 8. Yeah. But Grandma was there. And Grandma watched over us and cooked for us and that sort of thing. But we would have to get up before daylight, Willie and I. We would go out and feed all the cattle and milk the cow and check for calves and, check the hogs because if any babies were born and all, because you always had heater things in the areas or lamps or something to keep them warm. And then when we'd come off the school bus, we'd have to go out and feed the cattle, milk the cow, feed the pigs, feed the chicken. We had to do it all just like as if, and there was snow at one time was so deep that I put my dad's boots, those big old black boots that used to come up to your knees like, but on me, you know, it was like I couldn't even hardly bend my knees. And I would slop through all that thick snow and stuff. And we had like steers that were in this one fenced area that we fed them in with a big long trough. And can you imagine a little tiny girl about 65 pounds, maybe 70 pounds, not even 5 foot tall, taking 2 big buckets of grain and going out and trying to beat those steers off of you while you're lifting that up and putting it in there.
Trying to eat out of your bucket.
Yeah, exactly. But it was fun. I never looked at it as a bad thing. I enjoyed it. I felt proud that Dad thought enough of us that we could do it. And
Trusted
you know,
you.
yeah. And we only lost 2 calves because of the severe weather. One because she got in between the cows and the wall, and we think when they shifted, they squeezed her in between the wall and one of them. And then another one wouldn't come out of a shed that was out there that was for a shelter, like for the pigs or stuff. But she'd all back up in there and wouldn't come out, and we didn't find her. Because, I mean, you know, if you go up there and you don't come out and eat and you don't get around warm, you're going to freeze when it's that cold. Because back then it was tough winters, and we found her froze. But we had one old cow that literally gave birth and dropped it right in the creek during the winter, and it froze. Before, I mean, she backed up to the creek and dropped it instead of in the field or near the barn. Or
Why did they do that?
I don't. Dad
Well,
said the
maybe-
same thing.
She might have
Why
known.
would you back up against the creek and put your baby in the water like that?
And he's expecting her to answer too.
Yeah. Well, he talked to him. My dad could go out and call, and the whole herd would come to him, and then we would stand to keep him from going across the other way. Come down from the one field, come down the driveway and up into the barn lot. He would spray them, and then out and into the other field they'd go. And you'd switch them out about a couple times a year like that. And he could call them, and they'd all come to him. He could go out there, walk amongst them, pet the bull, whatever. They were familiar with him.
Did your family go to church?
Yes.
What church did they go to?
When I was a little bitty, we went there because,
Oh, that was a church?
yes, Mr. Bray that owned the farm implement and I think it was a Pontiac Buick dealership down at the end of town where now Parker Banks used to have it, and now it's King, I think.
Yeah.
That's where he used to come out and be our minister. My mom taught Sunday school. I remember that. And then when they decided about closing the school and stuff, we went in and joined the Methodist church that was on 4th Street. And it burned right after we came in, because I only have vague memories of that. I mostly have memories of that basement that's there that we would have our services in, and then built the one up on Rock Road called St. Andrew's United Methodist Church. And my dad had a lot to do with, you know, a lot of work on helping that, like building and the parking lot and all kinds of work. And we did too, all of us were very active. I was a Sunday school teacher, I was a, what do they call it, a nursery worker, usher, and then whenever I got married, I married a Catholic. And I went to his church until I got divorced. And then when I went back up to Mom and Dad's, I didn't feel warm and fuzzy. I don't know why.
When Vineland was your meeting house for school and or church,
Mhm.
did the church part of it have, or was the community that attended it majority Baptist, Methodist?
It was just
all
I-
Christian?
Right, it's
All
just a Christian
Christian
church, Protestant, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't denominational.
But in town though?
Oh, yeah, in
There's
town,
everything
you've got
in it,
everything's
it's all-
denominational, yeah.
Okay.
It was just church,
Okay.
church and Sunday school, you know. And then whenever I got a divorce and went to First Church of God in 1976, been there ever since. Moved away for a while, came back, haven't been lately because I have terrible time in the mornings. When I get up, I'm very stiff, I hurt, I have fatigue, I have pain levels, and I don't make it very often, do
Your
I?
Aunt Blanche went down to
The Christian
Hope
church.
United no,
No, Hope United Church, right, the one right below us.
Yeah.
That's where she went. My mom was a Baptist,
It's severe.
and I think when they got married, they decided to, like I said, they were going to that for services, and then when they came into town, then they just chose the Methodist church to go to.
Did they get married out of town, or they went to like Hillsborough City Hall, or
Um,
county seat?
I don't know where they went exactly. I just know that Mom tells us that she was walking home from the shoe factory, and there was that, it used to be Conoco on the corner of Miller and Main. She was coming across the tracks and walking up the hill, and Dad was down there with some friends, and he whistled at her, and she wouldn't turn around. But he told him, he goes, "Oh, I'll marry that girl."
Oh my gosh.
Then he asked her out in August, and they dated. And then he had a DeMolay meeting one Sunday night, and they had a date after the DeMolay meeting. Well, she had girlfriends, and they're like, "Oh, come on, go to church with us tonight. We've got this, bring a friend and you get credit, blah, 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 So she went to church with him that evening because she said, "Well, I've got a date. What time will it get out?" "Oh, you'll get out in plenty of time, Well, he got out of his meeting early. He came, and she wasn't there. And then she came home, and he never showed. So she figured he stood her up, and he figured she stood him up. So the next day when she came down the steps from the shoe factory, he was standing at the bottom waiting for her. And he wanted to know why she stood him up. She said, "You stood me up. I was there. I went to church." And "Oh, well, I must have got there before you did." Well, guess what? They ran off and got married in October.
When did they first meet?
They met in August and started dating in August. They knew of each other and each other's families, but they met and started dating in August and got married the end of October.
And they stayed together and made a go of it.
40-something years, very happy. I remember them holding hands, patting each other when they'd be next to each other in their 80s. I remember him saying when she'd come in the room, "Oh, look, there she is." I remember a lot of good memories about my mom and dad. They exposed us to a lot of love, generosity, caring, compassion, values, responsibility,
Exactly.
respect. We never called anybody by their first name when we were kids. It was all Mr., Mrs., or it was sir or ma'am, And if you went to somebody's house, if you even looked at the candy bowl like you wanted it, you knew you was going to get a spanking because you weren't supposed to ask for nothing. It had to be offered to you. And that was
Sounds familiar.
the fun
That's a
part.
dead breed of people, though.
Well,
Gone.
Dad would have to take time in the summer because of the heavy chores in the summer, putting hay up, putting fields in and all. But when he could do it, he would take time on a Saturday night, and we'd all as a family get together and go visit someone within a few miles radius of our home. And we would go there, and they would, as adults, visit. We would play. I remember my Aunt Cersei and Uncle Tippy had one of those double swings that had the roof thing over it and it had the platform, and you could push with your feet, and and I'd lay and go to sleep at their feet while they were talking. And they lived on the river back over in Blackwell. And I remember any time you went to somebody's house, you knew that there was going to be a snack time. They would bring out pie or cake or something. Or at Aunt Cersei's, in the summer, it was like watermelon. Spread the paper all over the all-cloth table out on the porch, screened-in porch, and you'd take that watermelon and roll it, and when it stopped at that point, you'd take the knife and hit it, and it would just split open.
What did the rolling do?
When you rolled it, you'd let it roll, and it would roll, and where it stopped at was the spot that you hit it
Just a tradition.
with the knife, and then it would split up.
Well, I mean, like with the hard-boiled egg, you can spin it and you can tell if it's hard-boiled or not, right? You're an egg person, but that's how you can tell the difference between a hard-boiled egg and a raw egg.
I just put it on and set the timer so I know that it's done.
Well, I'm just saying, if somebody handed
Excellent
you
with a
if somebody
pencil.
handed you an egg,
Right, and you're going,
and
is
you
this
wouldn't
hard-boiled
know
or
if it's
regular?
hard-boiled
You
or
just-
not.
I know what
You
you're
have
saying.
2 eggs sitting in the refrigerator. You know you've hard-boiled one of them, but which one is you're gonna open up and eat for snack? Not the raw one.
Yeah.
But so I didn't know if maybe the rolling the watermelon brings a heavy side to the bottom.
Apparently, I don't know, I just remember him doing that as a
They had
kid.
a guy on Antique Roadshow that had this sword that he found in the attic, and it was worth thousands of dollars. And he said, "Well, all we used it for was to cut watermelons in half."
Oh my gosh! Well, my dad
So
had a
they
sword,
said,
but it
well,
was
don't
the
do
Knight
that
Templars
anymore.
and that, Masonic Lodge and Knight Templars.
Was he a member?
Yes.
Did he go to St. Louis for the meetings, or did they have one?
They
down
had
here?
Masonic Lodge. He went to the Masonic Lodge in Blackwell. He went to the Masonic Lodge down here on Boyd Street.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I believe he had to go to St. Louis for the Knight Templars, plus he belonged to the Moolah Shrine as well. And you hear all these controversial things lately about Knight Templars and how they weren't, and all that, and you're like, I don't believe all that. As far as I knew, they was all good, and they all came from off the Bible. And they had, just because they had what they call secret meetings, meaning you had to be a member and you had secret passwords, and it was just, that was their group of way of doing things. And the Knights of Columbus, it's the same thing. That's what they do, as far as, because the Knight Templars and the Masonics are all Protestants.
Oh, I was just gonna ask.
Yeah,
The Knights Templar, were they a part of the Masonics? or-
yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Did
and he
she
had this
say
big old
Knights
hat that looked like
Templars?
one that you'd see on a guy with a ship, and he had a big ostrich feather on it, you know, and he had this big fancy suit with all the regalia on it, and then his sword that they'd wear, and they would put on the performance for the
Yeah, my dad was
funerals.
one of those too. He
Yes.
was a Mason, yes.
See?
And I'm like you, I know you hear all these terrible things about Masons, but I never, you know, as a child growing up, never.
The only,
I remember going down for the Christmas parties every year.
Yes,
They'd always
yes.
have, you know, the kids would come in, they'd always have Santa Claus there and have Christmas party for us. And I was never aware that it was subversive or secret or something in any way.
well, they had the Eastern Star for the women, and then the Masons for the men. And I remember in the one in Blackwell, you couldn't imagine the food. When they'd have one where the families would come and the men would go upstairs and have their meeting, and the women would prepare all the tables and everybody'd bring covered dishes and stuff. Oh my gosh, such good home-cooked farmers' wives. And then, after everybody ate, you had a group that would entertain you. And there was like people that would play a washboard and people that would play that string banjo thing. And I mean, it was just like it was when you watch Little House on the Prairie in a way. Because they had all that old stuff. And then when we'd come to DeSoto to their meeting, it always fascinated me because even then, I thought that building was cricky, you know. Old, floor was uneven, but still, it held up. But we'd have good food, good meetings there, and I was a Job's Daughters. And Dad helped in the DeMolays when he was an adult, and yeah. A lot of fun things.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, thank you very much
Enjoyed
for
it.
coming. It's been great.
Thank you for coming.
And yes, we will be
I'm sorry I
calling you
messed up
soon
last
about the
month. I just-
cemetery.
Oh, it's-
I wrote it on my calendar wrong. I came down here
I
and
will
I'm
let
like,
you guys know
nobody's
about
here.
the Veering
They
Cemetery.
called.
what
No, that
transpired
was last
because,
week. Oh!
Kevin Hayes, the one that I talked with, he said that
My bad.
we just might have some of the guys from work come up there and do that. I thought,
See if there's-
hey,
You wanna
Have
cut
him
your camera,
record
Dave?
while they're fixing it up.
Dave, do you wanna cut your camera or?
Yeah.
A lot of these are from the ones from.
I'm excited about it because the